goated 10-minute video here. What if everything went right for America? What if everything went perfect for the USA? It already has, baby. We're in the perfect country. There's been no flaws.
We are exploring an alternate world where everything goes perfect for the USA. Or at least, as perfect as we can somewhat realistically push them to be. So not just the US annexes the entire world. How overpowered can we possibly get the US to be if everything that could go right did go right? Now, just to be clear, we will mostly be changing American geopolitics and not their internal politics.
Just to be clear though, like geographically, everything that could go right for the US really has. It's like the luckiest country in the history of countries. It's been crazy over the past, let's say 4 years, that as we've encountered issues with like, let's say lithium supply or let's say oil reliance on the Middle East, we just keep finding more within our borders, like huge untapped. It's crazy that like in relatively recent years, the United States has become the #1 oil producer. Just kind of out of the blue due to shale in the Permian Basin right around here in Texas. I don't know. It's crazy. It's insanely lucky. We found helium in North Dakota. We found an incredible amount of lithium in the Salton Sea in California that's getting produced right now by fucking Warren Buffett. It's crazy. It's very, very randomly happenstance lucky.
So Big A always talks about how the US has become the leader in oil production, but most of you don't even realize how much oil the US actually produces. And it's all because of this one basin in Texas. In 2013, people found out that the Permian Basin had a lot more oil than they had thought, and they expanded operations on it rapidly. Since then, US oil production has almost doubled, which has allowed them to pass countries like Saudi Arabia by a huge margin.
In this video, we will explore roughly 2 centuries of history, starting in 1812 and ending roughly around the 1990s.
I just think it's really cool that like the Native Americans gave this to America. I think that's really cool. I think it's cool they said like, hey, look at all this stuff. You guys can have it. I think you guys will run with it really well. That was just a really fucking kind gift. They're like a nice people. And it was an honorable trade. And we just shook hands and that's how it went.
Let's start our story in 1812. In the decades prior, the US has managed to establish itself as an independent nation, securing its independence and stability. But now, it's time to push further beyond. In 1812, the Americans launch an invasion of Canada, hoping that Britain's responsibilities against Napoleon in Europe will be enough of a distraction to ensure their victory. The initial invasion was difficult, and the Canadian militias fought bravely, but at the end of the day, the American numerical superiority was too great. And Britain had little means, apart from their navy, to deal with the Americans.
Think about this, Canada. We could have been something. We could have been a teamed up contender.
Just so you know, this video was made before the whole Canada 51st state nonsense, so these jokes aren't actually as funny looking back on them.
But when Napoleon was defeated, Britain would make an attempted landing in Louisiana in an attempt to force America to back down. But it didn't quite go that way. The British landing in Louisiana goes absolutely horrible, being destroyed by the American forces, and after keeping up a naval blockade for a couple more years, the British public simply had enough of the war, and Canada would finally join their American brothers in glorious freedom.
How about
the next
that?
couple of decades would be spent on consolidation. Florida would be acquired by the Americans.
You guys know people talk about the 1929, the big stock market crash leading the Great Depression. And, there was speculation, there was all sorts of things leading into it. But one of the big causes of that bubble and crash was actually Florida real estate. One thing you learn if you study it more is like a huge precursor to the 1929 stock market crash was that everyone had fucking bought into like this whole idea of ever increasing Florida real estate value. It was like this huge bubble. It was a massive bubble and it unwound right before the crash.
Okay, the stats on this one are kind of insane. For the town of West Palm Beach in Florida, the value of all the property in the town in 1920 was $13 million. By 1929, the value had gone up to $89 million. But that wouldn't last for long, because by 1935, the value had tanked and was only worth $18 million.
After a couple of revolts, slowly but steadily, the Canadians begin integrating into the United States, being entered as new states into the Union one by one. Britain would remain bitter for a couple of decades, but what were they going to do? Keep up a costly and ineffective blockade wasn't going to change anything, and committing to a risky and likely painful invasion with no guarantee of success isn't a good prospect either. Slowly but steadily, Britain comes to terms with the loss of Canada, as the economic benefits of cooperation with the Americans outweighed the potential benefits of retrieving some underpopulated tundra.
They're saying all this like having more territory equals good thing, but we're already on the brink of civil war as is. With a country as big as it is right now, I feel like if we make this country too much bigger, bro, it's just fucking we're tearing apart, dude. The center cannot hold. Yeah, once you have 300 states all voting. No, dude, there's no way.
Next big opportunity for the US would come during the Mexican-American War. Texas, Rio Grande, and the Yucatan had been revolting against the Mexicans, and following the annexation of Texas into the United States, border clashes had led to a full-scale American invasion of Mexico. During this war, the Republic of Yucatan had also managed to secure American statehood, while Mexico fared extremely poorly during this war. After the fall of Mexico City, the question became, what to do with Mexico now? There were a couple of options. Annexing everything from Texas to California was an absolute no-brainer. That was quite explicitly the goal of the war. But there were calls to go even further and annex parts of northern Mexico as well, and, with the Canadian Free States being added to the Union, taking more Mexican states to turn into slave states would be a much more acceptable political goal. There was also an even more radical proposal, wherein the US was to annex all of Mexico. But this was so ludicrously extreme, very few Americans even supported it, so we'll go with the more likely, the US annexes some more northern states, but stop there.
Okay.
But now, the chessboard has been set for a conflict between free and slave states in the US. While it may be ideal for the US...
Civil war, but it's twice as big?
...avoid this war, I said I would focus on geopolitics, not internal politics. So, the issue of slavery is bound to explode at some point. This alternate war would see the borders drawn roughly along these lines, but the war would not be fundamentally changed.
I'm sorry, I do have to pull this up. I just Googled it. Joe Biden is older than Sheev Palpatine. Is that actually true canonically? He's not. Joe Biden is 7 years younger than Palpatine when he dies, okay? 7 years younger. He's spry. Palpatine died at 88. Oh, that's when he died. So how old was Palpatine like when he became emperor? 65. Okay, so this is 65-year-old Palpatine. That's 20 years younger than Joe Biden. And Trump, to be honest. Goddamn.
The North is simply more industrialized, more populous, and more economically important, and so they can simply blockade the South into submission, resulting in the eventual collapse of the Confederates, concluding the Civil War. Which makes us enter the period of Reconstruction, wherein the US is taking a deep and serious look inside to fix itself. But that's not all that the US does, because US expansionist tendencies have not yet subsided, not in the slightest, as the US was about to start shopping around for more land, with the two main targets being Alaska and Greenland.
Jesus Christ.
In our timeline, Russia sold Alaska for two main reasons: fear of future British conquest and the sheer unprofitability of the Alaskan colony. Thanks to the Crimean War between Russia, France and Britain, Russia was in a quite sorry economic state, and it's very likely that Russia still sells the territory in this alternate timeline. But even if Russia doesn't sell the territory, hordes of American migrants would quickly outnumber the Russians in the region, which would, eventually, result in American annexation either way.
Didn't Russia sell Alaska like right before oil was like discovered and manipulated there? Isn't it like almost immediately before? I think it was oil specifically, right? It was like immediate.
Still, Greenland provides little apart from prestige to the Danes, so it is possible that they could be convinced. The most realistic way I see this happening is by bundling the Danish West Indies together with Greenland. The Danish West Indies were an unprofitable colony, but nobody wanted to sell it from Denmark. If the United States offers a fair price for both Greenland and the West Indies combined, it is possible that this sale could happen.
It's kind of stupid. I mean, this whole concept is, I mean, I get what he's doing, but it's just like, we're just going to keep turning things blue, bro. That's it. I get it. I get the point. Let's see where we end up. We have Europe. We have fucking Europe at this point. I skipped ahead and we have Australia and Europe. I think maybe South Africa and Japan.
After decades of great power competition, the Soviet Union and their sphere would collapse, lauding in the true start of Pax Americana. In Europe, American influence would push itself east, while in Asia, North Korea would collapse without Communist China or the Soviet Union to protect it.
Wait, it's just American Korea, American Japan. Finally, a fucking good ending on a video. Yes, dude. This is like a game of Civ, bro. It's gone too long. All right, let's go, America.